No one can make an intelligent decision without being properly informed. This is why this world wants to control the media. This is why media hype can take you up, take you down. So you don't know anymore who's really good, because the media can make a wicked man look good and make a good man look evil. That is why. Until the dawn, I can't quit. I'm like Saddam, keeping my eye on Clinton, watching each movie make. Cause every slither he takes sort of reminds me of ivy and poisonous snakes. I feel the pressure, even though it's
Good evening and welcome to the Final Call News Hour. I'm your host, Herman Muhammad. The Final Call News Hour is the partner of the Final Call newspaper and the Final Call online edition that you can visit at www.finalcall.com. The Final Call newspaper is the most widely circulated black-owned and operated publication, not only in this country, but in the world. It also serves as the communications organ for the Nation of Islam. The Final Call News Hour is produced by the Ministry of Information under the direction of Brother Corey 2X. The Ministry of Information was born from the Millions More movement, which was launched in October of 2005 in order to ensure a future for all of our people. The overall mission of the Final Call News Hour is to provide an alternative source of news and commentary to our viewers. This is needed because although it is said we live in a free society with freedom of press, all of America's major media, both print and electronic, are owned by 5 major corporations, which we believe amounts to a monopoly on information. So programs like the Final Call News Hour are vitally important. Now this evening we're coming out of volume 27, number 52, which appropriately reads, America is broke. Dealing with the current economic situation here in America, this recession, depression, whatever it is that we want to call it. Now this evening we have a brother who's very familiar to the Final Call News Hour. He's an activist. He hosts a radio show on 1390 KGNU Tuesdays from 12 to 1?
3 to 4.
3 to 4, pardon me. I want to welcome Brother Shareef Aleem again to the program.
Thank you, Brother Herman Muhammad. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, sir. Now, Brother Shareef, we're going to step right in because everybody's talking about the economic conditions here in America.
Yes,
now, this
sir.
particular article appears on page 3 of this edition of the Final Call newspaper, and it reads, taxpayers to pay $700 billion for bailout. Relief for Wall Street still suffering on Main Street. And of course, it's dealing with this proposed $700 billion bailout for Wall Street. So, we could let these fat cats get fatter. But what was interesting to me, Brother Shareef, about this whole thing is no one discusses the working poor. It's not even in the discussion.
Or what black people and brown people, especially black people, is facing in this crisis. People that done had their houses for 20, 30 years are now in jeopardy of losing their houses because of these predatory lending practices that was established. I don't know if you can remember, but about 4 or 5 years ago, every other commercial that you would see on TV was DiTech loan. Get a 3.2% interest loan.
Right.
Take a second mortgage on the house. So what they did was they inflated, like they do diamonds or other commodities, they inflated the housing market and gave people a false sense of security because they told them, oh man, in just 2 or 3 years' time, your equity then doubled, tripled in your house. So what did a lot of people do? A lot of people took out second mortgages, third mortgages on their home, for home improvements. A lot of the elderly took loans out for medications that they couldn't afford or other necessities that they needed. And then they tricked a lot of people into getting these reverse mortgages and all of this kind of stuff. And a lot of it was directed towards poor black people. They preyed on our people, the elderly. I'm talking about these ain't no welfare mamas and daddies. These is black people that didn't work 40, 50 years in this system, getting Social Security. They might own a house, and now a lot of them is in jeopardy of losing their house. When the people got the mortgages at 3 or 4%, they didn't read the fine print that said in a year or two that this thing would go up like an arm. So the first year, it went from 3.2% to now it's 5%. Year later, it's up to 8%. Year after that, it's up to 12%. And it just gradually just keeps going up and up and up to whereas, your mortgage payment might have been $1,100. But then after they done got through with you with the arm, now you paying $2,200, $2,400 a month on the mortgage and you can't keep the house. So now what does the government do? They join together with corporate America and want to bail them out $700 billion and leave the people on Main Street to continue to lose their homes and their future and stuff like that. And it's a travesty, man. It's like the greatest rip-off. This is bigger than Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This is bigger than Al Capone, John Gotti. They talk about that type of crime, but man, this is some corporate crime that's astronomical. And if you could just equate it like this, you own a barbershop. I come in your barbershop and I rob you and everybody in your barbershop. And instead of the government putting me in jail, I go to Vegas, I take all y'all money and go to Vegas and blow it off in the casino, and then the government come and then pay me the money that I lost in the casino and don't give you a dime. That's fascism.
Right.
And people got to know that. The same criminals that caused this crisis, the government is turning around and bailing them out.
Right.
Henry Paulson, Treasury Secretary, was at Goldman Sachs for 20 or 30 years. He left Goldman Sachs and went right into the Department of Treasury. And then once he got into the Department of Treasury, he bailed out Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns. All of these financial institutions are intermingled with each other. So now the government is going to pay back insurance companies, banks, and investment firms when they robbed the people in the first place. And they telling the American people, if you don't go for it, then you might not have Social Security. If you don't go for it, we ain't going to be able to fund certain programs and you going to lose out. So now they got the people in a hostage situation, man, and the American people better wake up. And when I say American, I'm talking about white folks. Black people, we've been in this economic disparity for many years. But, a lot of my white friends, I'm concerned about them. They pulling hair out, getting ready to jump out of windows and everything.
And that's going to happen. And I think one of the, one of the key things that you said was that this was all, well, first off, it's a misconception that it's all based upon the mortgage crisis. That's an underlying piece of it, but it's more about corporate welfare and greed that's really causing this turmoil in the economy right now. But the whole predatory lending aspect of it was so cold because you give people, like you said, you fix their rate for a year or two, and then at the end of that 2 years, an adjustable rate kicks in or arm kicks in, right? And what they were doing is it was predatory because they wanted to charge these people who didn't have that knowledge, you know what I'm saying, who didn't read that fine print, all of these exorbitant interest fees. And it backfired on them because, who can afford a mortgage payment when it doubles? You know what I'm saying? When you barely qualified to get in when the rate was fixed. And so it's like their greed caught up with them and they actually ended up paying for it on Wall Street. Now, the thing that concerns me about the bailout, which I'm not too concerned, but when you talk about, okay, we got an election coming up, We have Barack Obama, we had Hillary Clinton running, and one of the things that the Democrats have proposed that has been shot at and shot down time and time again is the concept of universal health care, because that's a socialist concept. We can't have socialism
and government running,
and government running health care.
It'll be a disaster.
It would be a disaster.
But now we're going to let the government run our mortgages on the house.
Thank you.
So when you don't pay your mortgage, you go to jail. If you don't pay your taxes, you go to jail.
Or the whole concept, because okay, remember, we got Fannie Mae and we got Freddie Mac in here. Mm-hmm. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac owned half of America's mortgages. Mm-hmm. Half. That's $5 trillion.
Right.
Now that the government owns, essentially. So, what happens if eminent domain comes into play?
Man, they opening up a Pandora's box on this. See, the thing about this, man, they don't know.